All right, everyone, welcome back to Get NIST, the series that breaks compliance out of the checkbox trap and turns it into a real security advantage. No fluff, no FUD, just practical strategies to make compliance work for your MSP. I'm Jared Kasner, and I'm joined as always by my co-founder of Blacksmith InfoSec and co-host of Get NIST, Michael Zabarski.
Hey, everyone.
Today, we have our special guest joining us, Josh Hobein. Actually, I think we've got enough to cover here that we're going to make this a two-part episode, so just bear with us here today as we cover a bunch of different topics. But Josh, would you mind introducing yourself to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I am Josh Hobein. I'm the manager of cybersecurity and automation for a larger MSP called Centrix IT. Definitely love all things getting to talk about security and compliance and frameworks and all of that stuff. So very excited to be on and dive into this here.
Awesome. We are excited to dive into this as well. So today we're going to talk really, since we have somebody on who is an expert and living and breathing security and compliance on a day-to-day basis at an MSP, we figured we'd jump into some topics and talk about where the road hits where the rubber hits the pavement in the MSP space. So Josh, from everything you're seeing across the MSP community live, like what are MSPs getting right about security right now? Like what is good, what is bad, what is otherwise?
Well, I mean, the good is, offering security, right? Of doing it, it being not an optional thing. I think a lot more are getting on that. I think, cyber insurance, their hot buzzword this last year or so has been MDR. So, just, getting that in place, has been huge, but, it was just a conference last week with both of you fine gentlemen. And, there was a really interesting state of the channel that was provided. And one of the slides there said that cybersecurity is broadly offered, but the depth of capability value varies widely. So what that means is that a lot of MSPs are saying, yeah, we're cybersecurity focused, we're cyber first, right? But when they broke that down into different categories, when they asked the question further of, okay, well, what do you offer for security? That's where it got interesting. They had 6 different categories, and 19% of the solution providers, to 1 in 5, only offered one of those 6. And you still advertise that you're providing cybersecurity solution. 64% are offering 2 to 4, so not full stack. And only 17% offers that full actual stack of cyber solutions that is needed to really properly cover risk and cover compliance. So kind of an eye-opening statistic there, and one that we joke about in this industry of the extra S, and you buy this one particular vendor, this piece of software, and you can add an S overnight to be an MSSSP or whatever it is. But the truth is it's not that easy, right? And there's a glaring gap there in being able to say that you're offering security and actually following through with it.
And so
Yeah.
what I'm hearing is there should be an S added for each component of those 5 things.
Yeah.
You become an MSSSP.
Yep. You get your little logo as a snake, it's like MSP.
Awesome. Thanks. And thank you for bringing up the GTIA State of the Channel stuff. That's I think that's available publicly now. So anybody who wants to take a look at that, I strongly encourage you to head over to GTIA's website. There's some really cool information that came out in that State of the Channel report beyond just the statistics that Josh mentioned. So I'll give a quick plug for GTIA there. And Josh, you kind of teased up a little bit of that for our first question, which was, where does real world MSP execution clash with perfect security guidance? And right, if people are only choosing one of the 6 categories, well, there's a perfect example of where real world execution is clashing with what perfect looks like. But let's talk maybe Centrix is maybe a good example where you guys are, I think, doing all 6 of the categories. I saw your head nodding as the State of the Channel was being broadcast. You're like, yeah, we do that. Yep, we do that. So it does not surprise me at all. I know you guys are one of the more mature, not just operationally mature, but security mature MSPs out there. So maybe you can share a little bit of what good looks like from a Centrix standpoint, and that way others can learn from what you're doing.
Yeah, I would say, what good is that holistic, that overview, or at the very least, if you're not offering it, partnering with somebody who can offer it, right? like, don't just, offer backups and say, hey, we got backups, and they're secure, right? There's levels to those, right? And one of the things that we talk about a lot is that cybersecurity maturity, right? And it aligns to a framework. We align ours to the GTIA Trustmark cybersecurity insurance requirements, as well as CIS, right? So if you say, again, you're offering backups, are they offsite? Are they immutable? Are you testing them? Right? Do you have proof of that working? And then looking at, cloud security. One of the things that we come across quite a bit is Microsoft 365 and the identity layer isn't really thoroughly protected, right? You get the licensing, but the tenant might not be configured for hardening. You don't have conditional access policies in place. Your sharing policies are over the place. Your SharePoint's wide open. Teams are wide open. Having that extra additional email filtering in place. That identity and email compromise is easily the largest amount of incidences any MSP will work. Not to say that ransomware is fully gone away, because it's clearly not, but the vast amount of email compromises that come out, we really need to pay more attention to the identity layer. And that starts with the configuration of that cloud, whether it's Google Workspace or Microsoft 365. Then talking about, one thing that is often overlooked is that risk management incident response. There's not a lot that do the policy side of things and doing the preparation. And I think the reason behind that is because there's no easy button for it. There's no tool. You can get templates, which is better than nothing, but it does take quite a lot of work. And if we're talking about, the MSPs, we are fortunate that we are a larger one and have a dedicated role, such as myself, to where we can focus on those. But if you put yourself in a smaller MSP and you're wearing all of these hats, focusing on the preventative side of things is what you do, because you might not have the time or the personnel that you can focus to sitting down and writing these policies and doing these tabletops, right? So that's where it makes sense to partner with somebody else or a vendor that can help with those sort of things.
Yeah, and I mean, your point about identity is and immutable backups is really well taken. Also, I don't know if folks have been following along with the Handala Striker attack, but that was started with business email compromise, which gained access to the admin account. All of the devices were managed by Intune, and so having access to that admin account allowed them to push out and hard wipe all of the, like, every one of their employees' laptops, and they just completely went dark for days trying to
Not
figure
not
out.
just not just laptops, mobile devices, personal mobile devices that are joined into,
Yeah,
everything, right?
yeah, right, because they don't have people were not using like profile separation on their mobile devices, and so they were getting their entire mobile devices, like everything was getting wiped, which included SharePoint like they were wiping user accounts, and which was killing the SharePoint sites and backups. And how immutable is your data backup? Well, that really depends on how isolated and whether you're following proper 3-2-1 strategies and getting things off site and backed up in essentially an air gapped approach, where it's you actually have something and are you backing up all of your stuff, or are you just backing up the critical server infrastructure? Like, what does your backup strategy look like? So, that's honestly, people were pointing to the fact that there wasn't a ransomware notification that came out of that as a good thing, but I actually worry that it's almost worse, because there isn't anything there's nothing being ransomed. It's just gone. The entire company, tens of thousands of people went dark for days as they were right. And Mike, I appreciate that I'm being a little hyperbolistic here. Like,
No,
there will be backups. They will be able to bring people back online, but how are you going to bring tens of thousands of employees back online that quickly? I don't know. So,
yeah, I mean,
Mike, like,
there may be backups. I don't know. It always amuses me because anytime I go to any sort of security compliance talk, and people, usually the question's posed, "Hey, this just happened. Whether it's ransomware, deletion, whatever, what's the first thing you do?" And without fail, someone raises their hand and says, "Check if you have backups." And to me, it just blows my mind, because you should know if you have backups. Like, you're conducting backups, you should know if they exist. You should know if they were successful. And I think the big piece that Josh touched on is the testing of the backups, right? They're no good if you can't recover them. And it's interesting when we are in a cloud first world now to make sure, hey, cool, we're backing up 365, we're backing up Google Drive, whatever else. Testing, it becomes a little bit more interesting because you have to go in and actually run a file restore. There's no thing where in the olden days, I will say, back in my day, when you had a virtual server and you could do a test restore of a virtual server and see, hey, do all the files exist there, right? That concept doesn't really exist anymore. You're not going to go through and restore all of Google Drive or all of SharePoint or all of OneDrive somewhere. But being able to log in and say, hey, do these files exist, and be spot checking, and also doing a random file restore still helps validate that, hey, stuff is happening.
Yep. So another thing that I really like that Josh touched on was talking about how Centrex aligns to GTIA's Trustmark. And so, Josh, I don't know if everybody is familiar with Trustmark. I know you're a big advocate for it. Maybe you can give a little bit of an overview of what Trustmark is and why it's so important for an MSP to be thinking, whether it's Trustmark or something else, having a framework that you align to.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing, and the reason I'm a big advocate for it on the MSP side of it is it is a framework that is basically specifically built for MSPs, right? You can follow CIS, NIST, CMMC, all of those things, but they're not really tailored specifically for MSPs, and there are strengths and flaws. So don't get me wrong, aligning to something is better than nothing for sure. But I do like, again, what it makes the Trustmark unique is that they understand how we work and how we are providing service to our clients, and it gives that holistic overview. You can't just, scope it to a specific thing. Plus, you get that third party, right? If you say you align to CIS, you can't really pay CIS to come do an assessment to make sure you're doing that. It's more of a self, attestation, which, again, great, you're following it. But again, this Trustmark adds that kind of the extra touch of, hey, somebody came in and holistically, like, you couldn't hide anything, you can't scope anything, prove that you are aligning to a set of best practices for the managed service provider industry. And not only that, it's not pass fail, right? It's not, okay, you meet this control. You have to continually mature over time. So, let's take MFA as a very basic example, right? You can have MFA set up through an SMS on your phone. Technically, you check the box of multi-factor authentication. It's not the most secure way. It's better than nothing. So, for that compliance control, yes, you meet it. But then now next year we need to, get on Authenticator app or get onto phishing resistant tokens, right? So it's not just one and done, we have it. You continually have to improve, have a POAM, plan of action milestones to continually improve your security. And I think, again, from the MSP world as well, where that's important is right now, the barrier to entry really isn't there, right? Like, Mike could get pissed off at you, Jared, tomorrow and say, I don't want to work with this guy anymore. Like, I know how to do computers. I'm going to start my MSP. There's nothing stopping him.
Whoa. Mike would never get pissed off at me.
First of all, I'm not going to wait till tomorrow to get pissed off at me.
That's exactly.
Yeah. Mike can't get pissed off if he starts pissed off already, right?
That's true. The metaphor I always use is my son just completed his first year of hockey, junior hockey. He's like, in the mites, which is 8-7-year-olds. And we as parents have to do volunteer hours. So like, I'm a huge hockey fan. So the first thing that I went to mind, I was like, I'm going to drive the Zamboni. I got to volunteer how to do that. So, make a long story short, I asked like, hey, how do I do that? And I was told I had to go through like an ice maintenance course and get like certified and all of that. So all of that being said is it takes like longer and you have to be certified. Like the barrier to entry to being a Zamboni driver is higher than being a managed service provider. And as a managed service provider, it's not just one business. Like I have the keys to however many clients I get, whether that is, 1 or a dozen or 20 or 50 or 100, right? If I'm affected, if I don't have good security practices, it's not just me affected. That is all of my clients and all of their infrastructure. It's a big deal. And to me, in my opinion, it is only a matter of time before we get some sort of regulatory requirement. Like there's going to be some loss that happens where it's the tipping point. And would you rather be an industry that can govern themselves with something like the Trustmark? Maybe hopefully it is, but something like it. Versus, somebody that's just a suit somewhere that doesn't understand their industry at all and just says, yep, you need to follow these. And they don't have any idea. Right. So it's helping us get ahead of, what potentially will be inevitable. And I could be wrong. Maybe we never get there, but it's still something that we can have that can show that we're raising the bar of security.
Yep. Yeah, no, and I think you're exactly right. And I think this is where I get really excited about something like GTIA's Trustmark is that, sure, there are like SOC 2, ISO, CMMC, all of those require some sort of third-party audit. They are not specific to an MSP. There are things that MSPs do, to your point, because they have the keys to so many kingdoms, that the potential for disaster, the potential for harm, the potential for things to go wrong is significantly higher if the MSP itself gets popped. And we've seen that. And there are some good things that are happening, not just Trustmark and making sure that there's that governing body, but you have folks like Matt Lee, Jason Slagle, and Robert Chaffee with their with CyberRise and their MSP 911, where it's essentially a phone a friend for an MSP that's in trouble. So giving folks that outlet, right? So I'll give a quick plug for those guys also. If you haven't checked out CyberRise yet, please go check out CyberRise. It's a great nonprofit that's helping. It's MSPs helping MSPs, and so something to think about. But that also is kind of a good segue into our second question. There was actually, we had a couple different questions that were all sort of mishmashed together. So we'll bubble it up as a topic as opposed to a specific question. But really is, we talked about GTIA, we talked about MSPs helping MSPs with CyberRise. There are a bunch of different communities, MSP Geek and Tech Degenerates, and there's too many communities for me to possibly list them all. So I apologize for all the many communities that are out there that are really valuable and doing some great things. But how are those MSP communities shaping buying decisions, tooling, security standards? How are they helping each other out and kind of be that rising tide? And so, Mike, you've been uncharacteristically quiet today, so I'm gonna put it to you first, and then we'll let Josh jump in also.
Yeah, no, I think I think they've been, again. Josh may have different insights on this because he's involved in this from the MSP side versus the vendor side. But generally, from what we've seen, is the communities are really good as far as people you can bounce ideas off of. Whether it's IT business owners group on Facebook where people constantly ask questions of like, "Hey, I've encountered this situation. How do I handle this?" Right? And people will share their expertise. They'll help you navigate those situations. A lot of this has to do with which of the communities it is. There's certain communities that share tool sets, right? So they leverage buying power by saying, hey, everyone that's part of this community is going to use X. And then they go to their vendors and say, hey, it's not my 10-person MSP. It's now 10-person MSPs. And can we get some sort of buying power? So I think there's a lot of different communities and they all operate a little bit differently. Josh, what have you seen from the MSP side?
I mean, that's really, I think the word of mouth marketing in the community is the biggest part. The first thing that I'm doing if I need to evaluate a tool or if I'm looking at something is going into the various communities or, Reddit or MSP, looking the Discords or asking our Signal groups or our friends like, hey, anyone have experience with vendor XYZ, right? If we've been in the MSP channel, like I don't even have to say names, right? There are vendors who have a very bad reputation and vendors that have a really good reputation. And we're probably thinking of the same similar ones right now without naming anything. So reputation in the community is a huge driven thing. It's not all of them. I mean, there's tons of it. I don't know what the number, tens of thousands of MSPs. So clearly not all of them are in these communities, but the ones that are, it is a very good thing or a very big thing to have that reputation within them. I would say the vast majority of the tools in our stack, when I came to reevaluate or redo our security offerings, I sought out peer feedback, and asked, and I think it holds a little bit more weight as well. That's something that I do, initially with the vendors that I work for. They send MSPs to me to ask questions about how I use it, how, it aligns to our stack and things like that. I'm happy to show because again, there is that the value of the peer feedback is a little bit better than a vendor, obviously, selling, even though the vendor knows that their solution is the best. So it is a very, very much reputation-based word of mouth.
Yep. No, and that leads to some advice for any vendors who happen to be listening to this. I will just say, if you are a new vendor to the channel, some very simple advice for you. Number one, show up, be present, like being involved and engaged and active in the community. And that doesn't mean you need to be sponsoring every single show out there, because that can get outrageously expensive very quickly. It doesn't even mean necessarily showing up at every single show, but being in the places where the MSPs are, Discord, our MSP, the IT Business Owners Group, or the Everything MSP Group, or Seven Figure MSP Group, right? There are so many Facebook groups, Reddit groups, like communities that are purely digital that allow you to show up. So, piece of advice number one, show up. Piece of advice number two, seek first to help. Don't come in trying to sell somebody, because you will piss off MSPs faster than anything else if you're pitch slapping them, right? Hey, Josh, nice to meet you. I know we met for 10 seconds on the showroom floor or whatever. Let me tell you why my product is better than all the tools that you're already using and have deep and lasting relationships with these vendors for. No, I guarantee you're going to have a really hard time breaking in. If you can show up and you can add value, like this is a very much, the MSP space, the channel is very much value driven. That's one of the things that Mike and I have loved as we have gotten involved in the community, is there are so many people who are out there that want to help. So ask questions. The first question, and especially if the first question is, how can I help, right? Like be there, show up, be present, and add value every step of the way, and good things will happen for you. So that's advice to any new vendors that want to break into the channel, because it can be a little bit insular if it's all reputation based.
I'm going to go the other way and say, that's the vendor side. On the MSP side, if you're forming a new MSP, also get engaged with the community, because you can't, especially as a small 1-2 person MSP, you won't know everything out there. And again, asking questions, getting feedback from people that have been there, done that. The MSP community from both the vendor side and the MSP side has generally been very welcoming and very helpful to answer questions, help guide people, donate time, experience, etc., to help again both MSPs and vendors. So don't flip the void.
Cool. So Josh, when we think about community, what are some of the other things that like from your perspective that help build the MSP community that we can kind of share with the MSPs that are out there, and as they're thinking? And I'm going to pivot on myself a little bit here, because like I hear a lot of MSPs, especially the younger ones or less mature ones, saying, what tool should I use for X, instead of thinking through things strategically. So maybe we can talk about like where they can start to get some of that strategic advice before they start diving down the we're all tinkerers. We all like to play with tools. I get it. But like, how can we be strategic about that and lean on our peers to be strategic about it?
Well, that's just it, is asking the right question. And you can tell a lot about the kind of the maturity with how somebody answers that, right? Because if somebody asks me that, I will say, hey, these are the tools that I've used, but the right answer is the one that works with your stack and your business processes. If you are full in on an ecosystem and everything integrates together, then the right answer might be the tool that is part of that vendor ecosystem, versus maybe you're leading with like AI automation, everything is API driven. So the right answer is whatever tool has the most API offerings. So it really comes down to, again, that business process. So where that comes in is kind of those peer groups, right? The couple Discords I'm in, the Tech Degenerates, MSPs or Us, are two great places where there's a wide variety of both vendors and MSP people, and they tend to gear towards a little bit more of that higher operational maturity level. So posting those questions in there will get the good answers, but also there's nothing that kind of beats that face-to-face, whether it's a virtual face-to-face or the conferences, but going to get those ideas and sharing those ideas is great. So our friend Amanda from Avig posted an amazing security newsletter where she really talks about the strength of the community and kind of a recap of CCF last week. So if you haven't read that on LinkedIn, go to Avig's page and look at her latest newsletter. It really kind of highlights a lot of that. One of the things that she said in there was, only in the MSP world can you have a conversation at 3 a.m., in the hotel lobby about how to, look at your P&L and your financial statements. And somebody's like, hey, this is exactly how I do it. And it's not something that you just copy paste back in yours, but at least gives you ideas that you can take back to the business. It's invaluable. I mean, again, going back to CCF, I asked some other, larger MSPs, like how they're doing some sort of AI go-to-market things. And we brainstormed some really good ideas that I immediately brought back to, our team and was like, hey, we should look at some of these or modify how we're doing some of this, because I think this is a great idea that we just didn't think of. There's so many ways to do it. And that's what I love about this community is, I mean, one of the things that I do all the time is talk about the frameworks. And I've given talks. I have talks on Empath on how to align to a security framework. And I have like exactly how we do it. I give you the blueprint of like, here, take it, steal it. Right. Because the difference is like how we execute on that. But as long as, we can just raise the bar and work together to build a stronger, cyber community, like that's the right answer, and just have kind of the channel itself evolving.
And it's been interesting, as Jared and I have, we've been in the channel now for almost 2 years. And one of the things that we saw early on, because as we started getting the channel, we were dealing with much smaller MSPs that don't have that necessarily that same mindset. And it was always, hey, we need to protect our tool set and people can't know what tools we're using. And we're like, guys, you're not selling your tools, you're selling your services. Like, what are you talking about? It's not, like, the tools shouldn't matter at all. It's the people behind those tools. And as we've kind of grown more in the channel and talked to more mature MSPs, our mindset was correct, and it's aligned to what the more mature MSPs are doing. And we're trying to, similar to you, Josh, as we work with less mature MSPs, kind of drill that into them as well to say, guys, the tools don't matter that much. It's really your people.
Okay, and on that note, we're going to go ahead and end here for today. Please join us for week 2, where we will continue the conversation with Josh Obine from Centrex IT. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please do hit that follow button on Spotify, Apple, whatever podcast platform you prefer. If you're really enjoying it, you'd do us a huge favor if you could leave us a review to let us know how we're doing. And as always, if you want to get your question answered, please go over to blacksmithinfosec.com/ask. We will get to all the questions that have been asked of us. Please, we do read every single one of those. Make sure you get those in. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next week for round 2 with Josh Obine.
Close us out with one question for you, not to put you on the spot or anything. What's your favorite community? Go.
Oh boy, I mean, all of us.
Don't answer that. Don't answer that. We're gonna end up with some very angry community leaders there.
Hey, whichever community wants to pay me more on the side to say they're my favorite community.